Good day, everyone. So we are going to discuss plant propagation by grafting and budding. So example of grafted plant is a calamansi plant. So there are different kinds or types of plant that can be grafted. So what is plant propagation? Plant propagation is the process of producing a new plant from an existing one. It is both art and science, requiring knowledge, skill, manual dexterity, and experience for success. So there are types of propagation: sexual and asexual propagation. So what is sexual propagation? It is the reproduction of plants by seeds. The genetic material of two parents is combined by pollination and fertilization to create offspring that are different from each parent. There are several advantages of sexual propagation. It may be quicker and more economical than a sexual propagation. It may result in new cultivars and vigorous hybrids. For some plants, it may be the only means of propagation. It provides a way to avoid transmission of particular diseases, such as viruses. It maintains genetic variation, which increases the potential for plants to adapt to environmental pressures. Right? So let's have a sexual propagation, sometimes referred to as vegetative propagation. It involves taking vegetative parts of a plant, stems, roots, and leaves, and causing them to regenerate into a new plant, or in some cases, several plants. With few exceptions, the resulting plant is genetically identical to the parent plant. The major types of asexual propagation are cuttings, layering, division, separation, grafting, budding, and micropropagation. Advantage of asexual propagation include: number one, it may be easier and faster than sexual propagation for some species. It may be the only way to perpetuate particular cultivars. It maintains the juvenile or adult characteristics of certain cultivars. It allows propagation of special types of growth, such as weeping or pendulous forms. It may more quickly result in a large plant compared to one propagated by seed. So grafting and budding are types of asexual propagation. So what is grafting? Grafting is the process of connecting two plant parts, a stem and a root, together in such a way that they will unite and continue to grow as one plant. So why do we have to do grafting? Plants are grafted to create new plants, to create dwarf plants because some roots have a dwarfing effect on the stem, to increase the hardiness of a plant, and to increase disease resistance in a plant, or to change the natural form of a plant. What are the grafted plant? A grafted plant consists of the cyme, which is a short piece of stem with two or more buds, and the stalk, sometimes referred to understock or rootstock, which is the lower portion or the root or growing plant of the graft. So this is an example of a cyme, and this one is the stalk. What are the types of the fruits or plants that can be grafted in the Philippines? We have atis, avocado, balimbing, kainito, calamansi, chico, durian, guava, guayabano, jackfruit, lanzones, mango, and many more. So what are the types of grafting? Number one is the whip and tongue. It is commonly used to propagate fruit trees, especially apple and pear. The root of a young seedling is used for the rootstock. The scion is a dormant twig containing 3 or 4 buds. It is about the diameter of a pencil. This is an example of whip and tongue grafting. So how to do a whip and tongue grafting? The stalk and the scion are cut at a slant angle. The whip or tongue is then made by making a single cut 1 centimeter deep into the sloping cut. Both the scion and the rootstock have a tongue cut. Insert the scion tongue or the scion tongue cut into the rootstock tongue cut. Line up the cambium layers of both cuts and bind the graft with tape. Seal the graft with wax or grafting compound to prevent moisture loss. This is a cleft grafting. It is often used to join a smaller scion to a larger stalk part. Cleft grafting is usually done in late winter to top graft new cultivars onto existing tree limbs or rootstocks. So how to do the cleft grafting? The branch of a tree is cut straight across with a knife or a grafting tool. A split or slit is made in the cut end of the limb or rootstock. Next, a scion piece 7 to 12 centimeters long with 1 or 2 buds is cut and the end sharpened into a thin wedge. Slide the edge into the split end of the rootstock, matching the cambium layers of the scion and the rootstock. Cover the graft with tape and seal to prevent moisture loss. This is the rootstock, and the white one will be your cover, and the upper part is your scion. Bark grafting is similar to cleft grafting in that the grafts join smaller scion wood to larger rootstock. This method is done in the early spring when the bark easily separates from the wood along the cambium layer. Bark grafting is used to propagate fruit, ornamental, and shade trees. Procedure of bark grafting. The top from a 1 to 5 centimeters diameter rootstock tree is cut. On one side of the cut, a 5 centimeter long cut down through the bark of the rootstock is made. A scion is selected and the bottom end is shaped to be slanted on one side to a sharp point. The bark is pulled from the rootstock slightly along the slit cut, and the sharpened part of the scion is slid in between the bark and the wood, carefully matching the cambium layers of the scion and the rootstock. 1 or 2 small nails are then driven through the bark on each side of the slit, or the graft is wrapped with twine to hold it tight. The graft area is sealed with wax or grafting compound to prevent moisture loss. So these are the scion, and this is your rootstock, a bigger one, and then seal it with this white cloth or put a wax on it. Let's proceed to budding. So budding is similar to grafting except that the scion is reduced to a single bud with a small portion of bark or wood attached. The single bud scion is joined with the rootstock to form a new plant. Budding is done in the spring or fall when the bark separates easily from the wood of the rootstock. Budding is faster, easier, and more economical than grafting. No wax is necessary, and the cambium layers need to be aligned. Also, less wood is used. Most roses and fruit trees are propagated by budding. So what are the advantages of budding? Budding, when done properly, is not without its advantages to be propagator. For instance, there are some trees that propagate more readily by budding than by grafting. Although budded trees may be later in producing fruit than those that are grafted. But when a tree is rare, every eye may produce a plant, which cannot be done by means of grafts, or can be applied in summer. Fruits may be improved by working one kind upon another. Seedling fruit trees are often a long time in bearing, but by means of budding, they will bear fruit much sooner than by any other method. What are the types of budding? We have tea budding and patch budding. Tea budding involves taking buds from one plant and inserting them under the bark of the rootstock. So the procedure: cut a T shape through the bark of the rootstock tree. Open the flaps of the side of the T. Collect a bud from a budwood stick by inserting the knife at the base of the bud and carefully cutting out the bud, including a small sliver of wood. Make a horizontal cut just above the bud to sever it and the sliver of wood from the budwood stick. Insert the bud right side up into the opening of the T-cut. Slide it tightly into the cut and secure it with a rubber budding strip. Wrap the rubber budding strip above and below the bud, stretching the budding strip to make a tight wrap that will prevent loss of moisture from the bud. So we have number 1, cut a T shape, then carefully sliver the wood, then put the bud inside, and then wrap it with cloth. So patch budding is used when the plant's bark is thick, such as on pecans and walnuts. This method of budding is done before growth starts in the spring. So the procedure of patch budding. The bud patch must be precisely matched with the patch opening in the bark on the rootstock. Special budding knives are used to make the cuts on both the bud stick and the rootstock. The area except for the bud is then covered with grafting wax or wax cloth to hold the bud in place and prevent the loss of moisture. So for your references of these bud patching and grafting, you may have these websites. So thank you so much, and I hope you have learned something about plant propagation. Have a good day.